Hey everyone, so welcome to the second topic for week 4, which is personality. Um, this one's a little longer than emotion. This is essentially an entire unit. It's a shorter unit, but it's an entire unit, and we're going to look at um, what personality is and look at some theories about the biggest, kind of the biggest ideas surrounding what makes up our personality, whether it's again, something we're born with, something we learn, something that is influenced by our experiences and our environment. Um, so this first video is going to look at just what personality is, and then look a little bit at the Freudian theory of personality. Um, but and then the second video will also get into a little bit more of the Freudian theory about what makes up our personality. So anyway, so the definition of personality is the unique and relatively stable pattern of thinking, feeling, and behaving. Again, if you look at just the definition of psychology, it's looking at an individual's thoughts and behaviors. So you can see the stable pattern of those things is what most consider to be uh, our personality. What is stable over time in almost all situations, um, and environments that we find ourselves in. In terms of the theories surrounding, excuse me, about what makes up our personality, there's a lot of different ones. We're going to go over about 3 or 4 different ones in this unit, but the main one, the one that you probably see the most in textbooks and videos and the internet and stuff is surrounded. It's Freud. Okay, it's Freud. And part of Freud's theory on personality, I think, makes a lot of sense. And then I think that some of it's a little out there, and I'll get more into that in the second video. But um, his theory is the psychoanalytic theory, which again we'll get into here in just a minute in a lot more detail. Is probably the most well known personality theory out there, and you've probably seen it in some form or fashion in popular culture, in books or movies or TV shows you've seen. Or read, it's pretty commonly known, at least the idea of Freud. So the main 3 things that he said when he came up with his theory of personality, the 3 biggest factors in our personality development was the way that our unconscious processes influence our thinking, our sexual and aggressive instincts, whether they are conscious or subconscious. And he also believed that our personality is shaped very early on in childhood, and that if you have good or bad childhood experiences, they can both play a major role in the development of your personality, positively or negatively. So, again, these were the 3 big factors that he believed made up our personality and helped us to develop our personality. And again, we'll get in more into this in just a minute, but Um, as usual, it's controversial. Anything with Freud in it um, is anything with Freud in it is it can be controversial, like I said. But overall, it's probably the most well known. Okay, and what we talk about in this video, this part of his personality theory is pretty tame compared to a lot of his stuff. But the second video we get into when we start talking about the psychosexual stages, which can be a little out there. Um, those are a little more taboo, I guess. Like not a lot of people think that those are really valid at all. But anyway, we'll get more into that later. So Freud believed that if you think about it, remember back to consciousness when we talked about the levels of awareness, our levels of conscious awareness. Again, he believed we had basically 3 levels: conscious, pre-conscious, subconscious, or unconscious or subconscious. So conscious level thinking is what we're thinking right now, the perceptions we are having right now, the awareness of those things and being able to consciously in, interpret and interact with them. Preconscious are things that aren't at our conscious level, but can be at any given moment. So memories, knowledge, information that we have stored away, any of those things, if we think about them, then they come into our conscious level, but they are not there 24/7 all the time. So until they come to the conscious level, when someone says, "Hey, you remember that time that we did this or whatever?" Then whatever that is in preconscious before that person says it. And then when the person says, "Hey, you remember this?" and that memory comes to our conscious level, basically it's there, but it's not right in front of our face. That's preconscious. And then unconscious is all the stuff that Freud believed that we cannot access, like when we are consciously aware. He believed the only way we could get into those into those uh, sorry, the excuse me, I had a brain just blank there for a minute. Sorry, those motives, feelings, thoughts, all that stuff, the things in the subconscious that he believed. Yeah, he believed really the only way we could get to that was through dreaming or through uh, free association thinking and therapeutic methods and things like that, or subconscious slips of the tongue or things that might slip up into the pre-conscious or conscious level involuntarily. It's not directly accessible, as you can see there, that last bullet point. It's not, we can't just say, oh, let me think about all these really messed up things that I have in my mind. And he believed that's the reason why, is because they are so messed up by definition of what is acceptable and unacceptable. Um, so again, if you look at the image on the right, you look at all the violent motives we have, the fears, our unacceptable or taboo sexual desires, our immoral urges, irrational wishes, selfish needs, all those kind of things. He believed are below our conscious awareness, and we cannot access them unless we, again, get into some way of method of getting to the subconscious, which he believed really only existed through dreams or through very slight, like slip ups by the conscious mind. Okay, so this is the part of his theory that you probably, yeah, sorry, I can't talk today for some reason, that you've probably seen before, whether it's in TV shows, movies, whatever. He believed we had three parts of our personality. Everybody has three parts of their personality structure: the id, the ego, and the superego. And again, I'll talk about what each of those levels or each of those structures are here in just a minute. But these are, and again, it's important to remember that these are personality, not brain structures. He didn't believe that there was actually a part of our brain called the id or anything like that. He believed that it's just a model he used to explain the personalities that we all, parts of our personality that we all have, according to Freud. So let's go ahead and jump right in. So the id, according to Freud, is entirely in the unconscious. This is the part of our personality that consists entirely of inborn, unacceptable, aggressive, violent sexual urges and drives and things like that that are not, again, acceptable, normal. They're irrational, they're immature, they're impulsive, they're innate, they're kind of uncivilized. They're things that, in any other setting other than just raw human thought would be unacceptable. Um, and he described this as operating on the pleasure principle. So, in other words, if it's something that is pleasurable and that we can get immediate gratification from it, the id is going to want it because it's just innate. It's inborn. It's base. It just wants what subconsciously what it wants. Um, in other words, this is the part of our mind that is going to, it's going to be like our inborn, innate, kind of unfiltered wants that we have and needs. Um, again, it can be anything. It can be, uh, literal things we want, like objects. It can be food, sex, anything. Okay, it can be the most basic things that we want and the things that we kind of desire. good or bad, mostly bad according to Freud, is located in the id. Okay, it is again, it operates on the pleasure principle. I'll circle back to those principles in just a minute, but remember, the pleasure principle is the id. Okay, and then the superego. So um, if you look at the image up here on the top right of the iceberg, there's the pre-conscious, conscious, and unconscious levels there. Conscious being above the water, pre-conscious being underneath it, but not very far underneath it, and then unconscious being way beneath it. You can see what kind of how the id and the ego and the superego really match up with those levels of thing. You can see the id entirely on the unconscious. The superego you can see is partly both. And the reason that Freud said that it's partly both is because it is the things that we learn to be right and wrong. Um, it's the parental or societal standards that we're taught from a young age, the things that, we call it our conscience, the things we know are right, the things that we know we should be doing, the things we know that we're supposed to, show or demonstrate. And this, according to Freud, operates on the morality principle, which, in other words, is the things that we believe to be ethical, moral, the things we know to be right, the things we've been taught to be right. And you can see the reason that that's partly under like in the unconscious level is because there are some things that Freud believed that we just knew to be right, or we know this is the right thing to do. We just feel it. This is the right thing. This is what we're supposed to do. We haven't been taught that. We just know, okay, this is right. Not this is the moral thing to do. But then at the same time, there's also things that we know are right because we've been told that or we've been taught that. So it's a combo of the two. But just know that the superego is the thing that kind of wants to do good, the thing that wants to follow the rules or do what's expected. Again, the morality principle is what it operates on. Okay, and then the last structure, according to Freud, was the ego. And again, this is almost entirely conscious and preconscious. There's not a lot of subconscious to this. This is the rationality. This is the part that kind of mediates between the id and the superego. In other words, it tries to compromise between the two. It tries to satisfy the needs of both the id and the superego. So in other words, it attempts to facilitate what we want, even if it's messed up or unacceptable, but it tries to do so in a way that is acceptable in reality or in our situation. And it operates, according to Freud, on a reality principle. Okay. So let me just give you a scenario. Okay. And I use this example in class, and sometimes it seems to make sense to some, and sometimes it doesn't. But I'll try to do my best to explain it simply. So let's say that you are walking down, you walk into a restaurant. Okay. And when you walk into that restaurant, all that all the smells of the food and everything hit your nostrils and go up, and your brain perceives them, and you suddenly think about how good the food is going to be, and you're really, really hungry. Well, at that moment, the id, based on what you are experiencing, the id is thinking, I need food. Give me food. It's going to be awesome. Give me food. Jump over the counter, push the guy aside, grab the food, run out, just get the food and eat it. That's what I want. That's the id. The superego at this moment, because remember, the id is, let me back up. The id is the pleasure principle. Food. I want it now. Get it now. Don't worry about societal moral norms. Just get the damn food and let's eat. Okay. That's the id. Pleasure principle. That's what it operates on. Superego is morality. Superego looks at the situation and says, no, 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 wait up. Okay. We have to, according to kind of the rules of society and the expectations, we have to wait in line here. We have to go through the line and wait our turn. And then when we get to the front, we order our food, and then we exchange money. Once they have the money and they have gotten and we have paid for it, then they will give us the food and we will be able to eat, because that's how you're supposed to act. That is the way that it works. Okay. That's the superego. It operates in the morality. This is what we're supposed to do. Okay. And see, again, the id and the superego kind of clash. Okay. But you may be thinking to yourself, well, how is there a compromise there? Well, the ego, again, operates on the reality principle. The ego has to say, hey, wait a minute. Look, id, I know you want food. I know you want it now, but superego is right. We kind of have to wait. You're going to get your food, but we got to wait. We got to get the food. And then once you get the food, you followed both what the superego wants, the id gets the food it wants, and everybody's happy. Okay. Now, I know that's a very basic and simplistic understanding, but that's kind of how it works. The ego was able to compromise. Again, yes, it followed mostly what the superego wanted, but the id was also satisfied. So it works, even if it, again, a compromise doesn't have to be somewhere right in the middle. It can still satisfy both as long it's going to do its best to satisfy both. Doesn't always mean it will, but that's the scenario. That's what the ego tries to do, is it tries to satisfy both through some kind of compromise. Okay. Um, Sometimes the id wins out. Sometimes people do things that they know. I always usually ask the question, like, how many of you have made a decision that you know was wrong, but you just wanted to do it so bad you just did it? You know it was wrong. You knew it was the wrong thing to do. You've been taught that since you were a little kid, that this is wrong, but you did it anyway. Well, in that case, the id won out. Okay, the ego was not able to come to a compromise. You don't have to, again, you don't have to don't think to yourself that the ego always gets to a compromise. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the id wins out, sometimes the superego wins out. But these three things are always constantly at odds with one another, according to Freud. Now, another thing I will say, and I used to have a picture of this on slideshows, and it got a little confusing. Don't always think of the id and the superego as being like an angel and a devil on your shoulders. Some people think that the id is always wrong and the superego is always right. Again, not necessarily. There may be some scenarios and things like that where both the id and the superego are both right, you know, or maybe you've been taught for something that to be right that is actually in actuality wrong. But because the superego think, again, superego is made up of what you've been taught and what you've been told is right. They don't always line up perfectly. So don't think of it as superego is always right, id's always wrong, and angel devil on your shoulders. I mean, most of the time, yeah, that's going to be an easy way to think of it, but don't think it's like that 24/7. Okay. Okay. So hopefully, hopefully that makes sense. If for again, send me again with all these things. Send me reminds if something doesn't make sense, if something's confusing. Send me a remind, send me a message. I'll do my best to explain it. Hopefully, I was able to explain that pretty well, but I know it's a little confusing. But anyway, we got a couple more videos with personality, and then we're done. So see you guys soon.